Anxiety. Anxiety, it's a funny word, right? It's a word we used to throw into sentences randomly back in the day. All the time. It was a fleeting thought or emotion or feeling or whatever. We never put too much thought into it, right? Somebody would come up to you, oh man, I'm really anxious today. I'd be the first person to tell he or she when they came up and used that word in a sentence, man, that shit is all in your head. It's all in your head. Why can't you see past that? You're bigger than that, man. Let it go, let it go. It's all in your head. 2 years later, I find myself locked in a psych ward in the middle of the night with weird random ass patients casting shadows on these sterile walls, me waking up terrified. All I could hear outside the window was the wind. It was the winter. And all I could hear on that wind was these shadows telling me, dude, it's all in your head. Now, how did I get there? So, I know I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy, not at all. And I wasn't. I was a motivational speaker for thousands of people at the time. I had people counting on me to give them advice on how to conquer what's going on in their head, and I couldn't figure out what was going on in mine. Have you ever tried to understand the concept of knowing what normal feels like and knowing that what's going on up there is not what it is? That's what it was like. It was scary. It wasn't even scary. It was fucking terrifying to know that your mind had control of you like this. So I can remember distinctly the very second that this hit me out of nowhere. I woke up one morning dizzy, okay? Not unlike anything you guys have felt 1,000,001 times over. You wake up, you don't feel 100%. And the day went on, and the day turned into, weeks, and the weeks turned into a month and a half. And at this point, I'm dizzy from the time I wake up until the time I go to sleep. I went into the ER a few times during this because I started to get worried. They did the vertigo test. I didn't have vertigo. They did a whole bunch of blood tests, blood work. No, man, nothing. I got no results from that. So I started obsessing over it. From that point, being dizzy from the morning until the night, it's absolutely frustrating. You start to obsess over it. It's all you can think of. At this point, I thought I was really sick. Something was going on upstairs, Went and saw my family doctor. He gave me requisitions for a CT scan. Got a CT scan, which was terrifying in itself. I never had that done. Which led me to believe, as I'm signing these fucking papers, signing my life away, saying I might die during this procedure, I'm really starting to get inside my own head, okay? Something's going on. Something's not normal. At this point, about 3 weeks into this being dizzy from morning till night, I start getting obsessed with checking my breath, okay? Am I breathing? Am I holding my breath for too long? I'd start panicking, and that in itself would start this spiral of me checking my breath and watching my watch, and this became my next obsession, okay? So not only am I dizzy from morning till night, I'm obsessed with whether or not I'm breathing. We're at about month 2 in this whole thing. Keep in mind, everything in my life was completely normal other than this thing that I'd started to obsess over, okay? So now my breath is all fucked up. I don't know what's going on. I'm starting to try to talk and formulate sentences with people, and I had the sentences in my head, and when I go to talk, I'm like, do I have enough breath to have this conversation? It was a really strange feeling. At this point, I start getting this fluttery feeling every now and again when I start over-worrying, and I'm checking myself into the ER 2 to 3 times a week, no exaggeration. It got to the point where the ER doctors knew my name when I walked into the triage, okay? Really strange situation. And keep in mind, this whole fucking time, I knew what normal felt like, and what I was feeling was not normal. Nobody would believe me. My family doctor wouldn't believe me. My friends were like, dude, it's all in your head. It just got absolutely out of control. I felt I was completely alone. At that point, I started Googling my symptoms, which is terrible because anytime you Google your symptoms, you come out with some form of weird cancer you've never heard of, and I started obsessing over that, so I started becoming a hypochondriac. Now, we're about 3 months into this shit, and I've talked to my doctor a million times. He won't even take me anymore. I had the receptionist was telling me, Luke, it's anxiety. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's anxiety. This is not what anxiety feels like. There's no fucking way it's this bad at this point, I'm thinking. So now at this point, we're about 2.5 to 3 months into this whole thing, and I'm waking up from morning until night, obsessing over my breath control, obsessing over the fact that I'm dizzy from, the time I wake up till the time I go to sleep. The scariest thing happened about 3 months into this thing. I remember sitting in my mom's family room, and she had this big bay window at the front, and at this point I'm not really talking to people, I'm not really socializing because I'm convinced that I'm very sick and nobody gets it. And I remember staring across the road randomly with my mom's TV playing in the background, and I'm just kind of out of touch here, and I'm looking across the road, and I'm staring at my my neighbor's license plate, my mom's neighbor's license plate, and I'm just staring there blinking. You know, I'm just counting time with the blinking 8s on an alarm clock, and I'm looking at this license plate, and like 3 blinks into it, my whole vision flipped upside down. Like everything was upside down for about 2 blinks, and I panicked. My heart just about stopped. I said, Mom, call an ambulance. Something's fucking wrong. She's like, Luke, what are you talking about? I said, fuck this. I got into my truck and I drove right to the hospital. I said, this is what happened. And the nurse looking at my chart is like, she knows I've been checking myself about 15 times in the last month I've been in there. It's clearly somebody's marked anxiety on the sheet. Nobody's willing to talk to me. Now I'm absolutely fucking terrified. I said, I have to, like, so I'm dying. I was convinced I was fucking dying. And that was a very scary moment in my life. So from that point on, they don't do shit. They make me wait for, I remember 21 hours I waited in the emergency room, and they said, you just need to wait for the anxiety to pass. Didn't even know that was a thing at the point. So now, I forgot to mention that I'm on these, I'm on Ativan, like lorazepam or whatever, because they told me it would calm me down. And I'm taking, it started off as a 0.5 pill that I would take anytime. It was situational. You start to feel that weird fluttery feeling. You take one of these things, feeling will die down, sublingual, 20 minutes, you're good to go. But what I didn't know were benzos, where you develop a tolerance to this type of drug. And at this point, I'm taking 3 to 4 milligrams a day. And I'm just walking around the world like a fucking zombie. Actually, I had no fucking feelings, no nothing. So what happens from there is I start developing these chest pains, okay? Physical chest pain. I don't mean like precordial catch syndrome, nothing like a little breathing cramp. Like, these were horrible. They would curl me up in a ball. And I would get them, you know, start off like 3-4 times a day. As the days went on, it was like constant. It was on the hour. I was checking them, like, when am I going to get this pain? And I'd anticipate it, and that would create a whole butterfly effect. And it was just crazy. And they were so bad, like, they would bend me over in half, these fucking pains, right? And my wife was so good to me. She was only my girlfriend at this point, but she knew it was all in my head. But she would, you know, for me, she knew that I needed to hear that somebody was listening. So every night that I went to sleep, I would make Kinsey set her phone alarm for every 2 hours, because I was convinced I was either going to die from these chest pains or I was going to stop breathing. And I know it sounds crazy. When I look back at this video after I make it, I'm like, how the fuck could I think this stuff? But it was real, man. It was as real as I could ever relate to you guys. Like, it was unbelievable. And she's a sweetheart. She'd wake me up every 2.5 hours to make sure I was still breathing. But she knew fully that I was going to wake up perfectly fine in the morning. But I was convinced that I was going to die in my sleep. And every night that we went to bed, I'd have this like weird little conversation, like, it's the last time we're going to talk together, because I was convinced every night that I went to sleep was the last time I'd see her, which is absolutely crazy in itself, right? So from that point on, my doctor wouldn't see me anymore because I was hounding his office. And you guys got to remember, I was totally fucking normal 3 months before this. Totally normal. And I knew in my head at that same point, like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? I am 100% not crazy. I knew this, but everyone around me is telling me it's all in my head. Now, how's that supposed to make me feel when I know what normal feels like, right? So after that, I go into the ER, or the urgent care clinic, and this doctor there, I tell him my whole story. He kind of shrugs it off or whatever, and he gives me this pain pill pain pill prescription. And I don't know, if you guys know me, you know I don't do drugs. I've never really done drugs in my whole life. So again, these pills are gonna fix what's going on up here. I'm gonna take them. This guy's a doctor. He went to school for this shit. So I'm taking these pain pills, and I'm getting, and the chest pains are going away, right? So I get near the end of the bottle, and I called my doctor's office for a refill on the prescription, and the receptionist calls back a few minutes later. She's like, you can't get a refill on this prescription. What do you mean I can't get it? These are saving my life right now. Well, yeah, we're not giving these out to patients anymore. Apparently I got oxys. I didn't even know what oxys were at this time. So now I'm starting to scramble, because I only got like 4 or 5 pills left, and I know the end of this is coming. Like, how am I going to deal with these chest pains, right? So I start calling my friends, and one of my friends, I tell him my story. He's like, you know, I think I can get those for you. And he starts getting them for me once I run out. And now, as this is going on, these pills that they were giving me, he gave me stronger ones, the guy that I ended up getting them from. And he's like, no, just split them in half. So I started splitting them in half. And so that half pill turns into a full pill, and eventually the full pill's not working, so I'm taking 2 of these full pills at once, and before I know it, within 2.5 weeks, I've got a full-blown oxy addiction. I didn't even know what the fuck oxy was. I don't know why I got those things in the first place. Like, I don't know how he was able to prescribe me something that I wasn't gonna be able to get off of. Pretty soon, I had to go to some facility to give me some weird orange drink to get off of this thing, because I was a drug addict. I was a drug addict without knowing I was a drug addict. Now, how is that possible? impossible. So for something that's all in your head, it could have created these physical symptoms that were so fucking deep, they drug me down to turn into something I've been against my whole life. And now I'm taking ice baths and trying not to vomit every fucking 30 minutes I don't have these pills, and I gotta go to rehab to get off of something I didn't want to be on in the first place, all because one morning I woke up feeling dizzy and convinced myself that I was dying. Now, if that's all in your head, we have to take a step back here and realize that our head is a lot stronger than we give it credit for, right? We have to be able to differentiate between right and wrong, logical and illogical thinking, and make sure that that inner voice, the voice that knows you, the one that's grown up with you and knows you your whole life, is the one that's screaming the loudest. Because if you let that other one take over, eventually you're going to find yourself in a position you don't want to be in. I end up getting formed by my doctor as I'm seeing a therapist, a psychotherapist, a clinician. Everybody's telling me some different shit. All of a sudden, I don't know who I am anymore, and I get formed up by my doctor, have to go to the psych ward, and can't get the fuck out until he says it's okay. A doctor that wouldn't even give me the time of day is the one telling me when I can stop eating these dry-ass fucking turkey sandwiches in the middle of the night with a bunch of people that are taking shits and wiping them on walls because I was dizzy one morning, and he knows better than I do. But my psychotherapist is telling me one thing, my therapist is telling me another thing, clinicians telling me the other thing. Ultimately, I had the answer. I was just letting that stupid little fucking voice control and dictate what I'm going to do every day and control my train of thought. But honestly, that's not a thing. We've created this. We're letting these triggers, there's another buzzword they throw at you. Like, I have not been to a grocery mall in years now. I have not been to fucking go clothes shopping, and I have to get people to go to the mall for me because I found out that my triggers, now this is implanted. I was fine going to the mall before. I was fine going to the mall through this whole thing. But one of my therapists told me one of my triggers was fluorescent lighting, so now I freaked out myself. Not now, today, but during the end of this thing, I couldn't go to shopping malls or whatever because they planted a seed in my head that told me that that's what was freaking me out. Now, how crazy is that? Think about that. I started this whole shit off by telling you I'm not crazy, but right now you're probably listening to this being like, that dude is crazy. No. This went from 0 to 100 so fast. So fast. So I lost 2 years of my life because some doctor decided that he knew that little voice that I've grown up with my whole life better than I did, and how I should be controlling that. Bottom line is we already have the answers, guys. We have the answers. We just have to make sure that the voice that's screaming the loudest is a logical voice. So every time that you feel deterred from this little thing that's telling you you're sick, something's wrong with you, that's not the one that we listen to, okay? That's not the one that we listen to, because ultimately that thing's going to end up controlling us and turn us into a completely different person. And that's what happened to me. So you have to think before you feel. And it's a really weird concept, right? You have to be able to understand what voice in your head is the logical voice. We got to remember that next time somebody comes to you and says that they're an anxious person or they have anxiety, we cannot be so quick to judge, okay? Like I said at the start, it's a voice inside your head. You're right, it is. But at the same time, you need a support group around you that understands that our head is capable of doing so much more than we give it credit for. Whether it's physical symptoms, whether it's self-doubt, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all fighting the same fight. So at the end of the day, maybe we should pay a little bit more attention to mental health. Because today, as I look around and see all this stuff that I've created and all the people's lives that I'm changing, this is a side of me that they don't know about. So when they bring this stuff to me, they don't know that they can relate to me on the level that they can. And that's why I'm putting this video out there. So you're 150% not alone. There's just ways to get around it. And that's what we got to do. But we got to do it together.